In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to play some of the grooves from the song Hollow by TESSERACT. It's a song that we originally wrote quite a long time ago. It was originally released as a bonus track with One. If you pre-ordered One back in the day, you got a download link to a very old demo recording, basically, of this song. And a couple of years ago, we re-recorded it with the intention of releasing it alongside the 10-year anniversary of One, basically. And we couldn't do that for a number of reasons. However, we've just been able to release it alongside another song, and I thought it would be a great opportunity to teach you guys how to play one of the most complicated, crazy, short little Tesseract songs that's ever been written. One of the first things to understand in this song is that there's a couple of numbers that are sitting alongside one another. Those two numbers are 5 and 4. You want to get comfortable with your 5s and your 4s. That's really vague. What's that mean? There's a couple of different things we can do. There's the 5/4 polyrhythm. That's an important thing to get used to, and that would be counting a 4 and a 5 at the same time. That's going to sound like this. Fours and 5s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the floor tom, and 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the first thing to get used to, and you can download metronome apps that will teach you how to do that. You know, you can just put the two counts on at the same time, sit there with both things. Or if you're a member of my website, within the Progressive Drumming Masterclass, there's a lesson specific about the 5/4 polyrhythm where I explain how I count it and how I've learned it. And what learning that polyrhythm does is it gives you a feel. That's the best way of describing it. It gives you a feel. It unlocks this thing that you can do that you can automatically count that you don't have to think about. And that's the important thing. When you can count a 4 and a 5 at the same time and you don't have to think about either number, then you can use them to your advantage and you can play with some really nice timing elements within your grooves. The other thing to consider is working with a grouping of 16th notes that are going to be playing a 5-stroke count as an ostinato. That's a repeating pattern. And we're going to play that to a 4/4 time signature. And the pattern that I'd like to play is going to be this. It's going to be right, left, left. So if I put that across a couple of different drums, we've got right, left, left. Really easy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the simplified version of it. And I'd like you to get used to that pattern. It can just be on a pad, or it can be across a couple of different drums if you're playing on a kit. But ultimately what we're trying to do is realize that to one bar of 4/4, and that's going to sound like this. That's the first pattern that I'd like you to get down. And the important thing to remember is that we're not playing these 5s as quintuplets. We're not playing them as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, where the grouping of 5 matches up with the quarter note. So we're not doing that. What we're doing is playing them as 16th notes whilst keeping a quarter note down. And what that means is that because we're playing 5, each time it's going to get displaced forward by one more 16th note. So against that quarter note count, you end up with right, left. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 1 and the 5 being where the quarter note's going to land. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then the next grouping of 5, the quarter note's going to land on the 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's going to keep happening. So we go from the 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, and then back around to the 1 for it to repeat. So 1 2 3 4 5, 1 2 3 4 5, 1 2 3 4 5, 1 2 3 4 5, and then the whole pattern will repeat naturally. So when you can get it down at that level, 1 2 3 4 5, 1 2 3 4 5, 1 2 3 4 5, 1 2 3 4 5. That's all there is to learn to get this pattern down, and then you can practice speeding it up. And I recommend taking it literally, if you can't feel it, if it's a really weird feel to sit with it first, learn it one grouping of 5 at a time and learn where that quarter note lands. And then as you begin to gradually speed it up to a metronome as well, that's very important. When you begin to speed that up, it'll stop being a count and it'll just be a... It becomes something that you can flow with, that just has its own natural groove. The next exercise I'm going to show you is going to focus on the kick drum, because that first groove in the song, it's really kick drum heavy. There's loads of kicks all over the place and it sounds mental, but what's actually going on is that we're applying that 5-stroke count, or that 5-stroke feel, to a repeating pattern on the kick drum. And the easiest way of getting that down is the pattern that we just learned on the hands, right, left, right, left, left. If we take the right, right from that pattern and we play those on the kick. So you could learn that by saying, every time I hit the floor tom with that pattern, I'm going to also do the kick. That would be maybe step 1. And practice that to a metronome. So got my metronome over here. You could repeat that over and over until that's comfortable. And ultimately though, what I'd like you to be able to do is play just the kicks while keeping down a straight right hand count. So just the kicks of that right, left, left pattern, but while keeping a pattern that's just keeping those quarter notes going with the right hand. That's going to be step 1. If you spent time getting those 5s down in exercise 1, that shouldn't have provided too much of a challenge. So what I'd like to suggest is to start getting that double kick pattern comfortable. What we're going to play is the 1, the 2, and the 4 of that 5 count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's what we're going to play while keeping down that count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's only 4 different ways to learn how to play that. And what I'd like you to do is get used to playing that. While keeping down that right hand, just playing those quarter notes. And in order for that to repeat, for that kick drum pattern to repeat naturally, you're actually going to play 5 quarter notes with the right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The reason for showing you that pattern in particular is that it forms the basis of a lot of what is going on with the kick pattern over that first groove. And we're building up here to being able to play that first groove. So the next natural step would be to place a snare drum accent on the 3 of that quarter note count. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And if we do that over that kick drum pattern that we've just learned, that's going to sound like this. In this part of the lesson, I'm going to show you how to play the introduction groove to Hollow. That's the groove where the kick drums are going absolutely crazy and it's real heavy. I'm going to show you how to do that now. If you've downloaded the sheet music for Hollow, we're going to be looking at bars 16 through to 23 in this first section. And that's where we've got the right hand just keeping down a solid quarter note crash, and we've got the left hand is going to place a snare accent on every third quarter note. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Nice and easy. And then halfway through, we switch from the 1, 2, 3, 4 on there to a 1, 2, 3, 4 on another crash. So a switch between a couple of different crashes just to give that groove a little bit more diversity, because essentially the thing that's happening underneath it is the same. We've just got a repeating kick drum pattern. So if you practiced the kick drum pattern from the previous part of the lesson, that thing, then you'll be somewhat familiar with the pattern that we're going to play in the intro. The only difference is there are a couple of changes. There's a couple of sections where I'll do a run of 4, for example, and I'll just do right, left, right, left. That you can see in the second bar, there's a group of 4/16 notes there, so the pattern changes ever so slightly there for that bit. And all I'm doing there is right, left, just keeping the single strokes on the feet. And the same thing happens again at the end of bar 19. You've got another run where there's 4/16 notes on the kick. But otherwise, it's literally just playing. You've just got that same pattern. So it's just the same pattern repeating over and over. The other thing to point out is that the kick drum pattern, the repeating that pattern, it starts on the second beat, on the second quarter note. So you've got the 2 8th notes at the beginning of the groove, which I just play as 2 right kicks, like that, and then you start playing that. So 1, 2. Then after playing that for 4 bars, obviously with that snare backbeat in there, we switch over to another cymbal and we got another 4 bars. And then on the 4th quarter note in bar 22, I'll play, it's a repeating 5 count again, which is basically what is happening throughout this entire groove. It's just collections of 5. But I'll play it's single strokes. My right hand and left hand follow my right foot and my left foot, and I play this pattern across a couple of different cymbals. My left is typically staying on a splash, which is on the rim of this drum for me, and then I'll go from a stack up to a crash over here, and I'll play that kind of pattern. Now, if that feels a little awkward in itself, it could be a great exercise to isolate just doing that to a metronome. So you'd put a quarter note metronome on at whatever speed feels comfortable to start. That's going to be subjective. And you're counting out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you're playing on the 1, the 2, and the 4, leaving the 3 and 5 as a rest. The 1 is on the right hand, the 2's on the left hand, the 4's up on the right hand again, and the 3 and the 5's are going to be rests. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And just practice getting something like that tight just to a quarter note metronome. That could be a great exercise. Now, it may be that you're just able to follow the sheet music, slow down the performance video below, and learn this pretty easily, but it may be that that's not the case because it's a difficult groove. And with anything that's difficult, what I do is I'll follow either a sheet music transcription at a much slower speed, really, really slow. I have to slow it right down, or I'll follow the MIDI. So I open up Cubase, I throw it on the screen in front of me, and I follow the MIDI drums along at a really, really slow tempo. And what I recommend doing, if you don't have access to Cubase or another digital audio workstation, is play along whilst watching the sheet music below. So if you play along to either the video or you play along to a synthesized version of it, you can click a button to turn it to a synthesized version of it. You can play along to that and you can slow it right down and look at where the right hand is hitting. That's going to be the important one. The right hand, because that's defining where the metronome is, and look at what the feet are doing and follow those dots, follow those notes. If you do that at a slow tempo, it'll start to lock in. You'll start to identify those patterns. And think of it as it's like playing Guitar Hero. Same kind of thing. You have a series of dots that that you're going along, and you've just got to line those dots up with your limbs. And practicing that, it's a great way of learning more complex patterns. And take it one bar at a time as well. Get the first bar down. Get that down. And then get the second bar down and practice bar 1 into bar 2. I find it more useful to practice to get the reference from having the first bar into the second bar. And then when I can do 1 into 2, I can do 1 into 2 into 3, and then 1 into 2 into 3 into 4, and so on until I've got the entire groove. I don't find it that useful to just isolate one individual bar and play that. It kind of detracts from the intention, which is to feel this as a groove. So I recommend playing it in sequence. So get 1 down, get 1 into 2, get 1, 2, 3, and so on. The first exercise then is going to be to go from bars 16 to 23. We're going to have a little break at the end, and we're going to loop that so that we get comfortable switching between the two cymbals. We get comfortable with the kick drum pattern, and we get comfortable with that the little cymbal shifty thing, and we're going to get comfortable with that little snare roll at the end there. And then in the next section of the lesson, we're going to focus on the next part of that groove, which gets a little bit more complex. If you're practicing this to a metronome, it's going to be up at 150 beats per minute, which is pretty fast. So I recommend start at around 70, start real slow and get this thing down. It's going to feel weird potentially playing double kick at that speed. So maybe there's a speed that's a little bit faster than that still gives you an element of that groove. It still gives you the ability to play double kick with a bit more comfort. But I find that I have to start these things very, very slow in order to be able to build them up with the confidence to the speed that I actually have to play them in real life. This next section is a little bit more tricky. We have a repeating snare drum accent that isn't just going to be on the 3 each time. We're changing that out. That's the first thing we're changing out. What's actually happening is that between the right hand and the left hand, you've got a 2/3 polyrhythm. So all that is, you count a 2 and a 3 at the same time. The 3s are actually on the right hand. 1, 2, 3. 2s are on the left hand. We're repeating that pattern. That's all that's happening. We're playing the same kind of kick drum pattern underneath, but we're playing that 2/3 poly over the top of that groove. So you've got the repeating 5s underneath, 2/3 poly on the hands. There's going to be 3 variants on where the snare is placed in relation to the right hand for this section. And it's a really short section, so it's crazy that it changes so much. But when it's played continuously, it kind of makes perfect sense. But I'm going to explain what's going on with the snare just in case you're interested. So you've got a version where the snare could land with that right hand. You could play that 1, 2, and 3, 4. That would be one of them. There's another one where it's going to play 1 and 2, 3, 4, and 1 and 2, 3, 4, and. And then there's another version, a final version, where we're going to play 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Those are the 3 versions that you could learn. And then you could play that just continuously. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1 and 2, 3, 4. And 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1 and 2, 3, 4. And 1, 2, 3, and 4. So there's only 3 bars of 4/4 that you've got to learn as that 2/4 polyrhythm. So it's not crazy to learn that. It's just a repeating pattern between the 2 right hands. What becomes difficult though is putting that pattern with the kick pattern, because that is difficult. That's not an easy thing to do. And again, to learn something like that, I have to take it a bar at a time. It's not something that can just pop into my brain. With some patterns, sure, I've played drums for a long enough time that I can do this kind of thing now. But there are certain patterns that I'm learning, that I push myself to learn, that require me to slow everything right down to a point that you may consider unacceptable. It may seem like, really, I have to slow it down this much to learn this thing? You have to slow it down that much to learn it. Literally, that's how you do it. That is how I do it, and it works every single time. I follow a transcription, or I follow the MIDI when I'm trying to learn it, and it takes so much of the guesswork out of it. So if you are struggling to put together the feet and the hands, follow the transcription in the exercise below, slow it right down to at least half speed, and practice it down there. And that would look something like this. That's very slow, and down there, it's almost more difficult to play. It is almost more difficult to play. At a slow tempo, these things can be super tricky. But at those tempos, you get really familiar with the space that you have to have between the notes, and it gives you a chance to get really, really familiar with the patterns, the combinations of the patterns as well, how you're going to put the hands and the feet together. And then when you speed it up in 5 or 10 BPM increments, when you're doing it a bar at a time as well, speed up in 5 or 10 BPM increments, then the pattern starts to glue together. It starts to come together in your brain. You have to think about it less. The coordination develops alongside all of that, and you'll eventually be able to play the pattern. A small detail I don't want to overlook is the beginning of bar 24. So coming out of that snare run from the first half of the groove, we have that, and then the beat continues. So we have a crash with 2 kicks followed by a snare. And then starting on the second beat, we have 2 8th notes with a couple of crashes. Immediately after that crash, you've got that snare drum coming down, followed by 2 more kicks, and I'll do a right-left for those, because they lead into that repeating 5-stroke pattern. Very slow once again. After we've played this groove through 4 times on the stack, we move up to playing it 4 times on a crash. So you got 4 down there, 4 up on a crash, and then after I've played it 4 times on a crash, the groove changes back to something closer to the first half of it, where we're keeping a quarter note down with the right hand. The 3 is going to come back on the snare, so 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4. But instead of keeping it on 1 crash, I'll move it across 2 crashes and a china. So I'll play 1 2 3 4. So 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4. And I generally put the china with the snare just because it sounds kind of explosive when you do that. There's just something that sounds big and heavy about that. So we'll play and at the end of that, we go back into that pattern that we've already practiced, the singles, and then we go into a fairly complex 5-stroke roll-based groove that I'm going to show you later on in the lesson. So we've got 4 bars on the stack, 4 on a crash, and then the alternating crash china pattern, and then we end again with that pattern. So the exercise that I'm going to present now then is to play that. We're going to come out of the snare roll from the previous bar. We're going to do the crash, the little intro section of this groove. Then we're going to go with the 3/2 poly with the 5s on the feet, playing the stack version, then onto the crash, and then we're going to do the alternating crash china, and then we're going to end. Then there's going to be a little gap at the end just before we loop the whole pattern. The third step is going to be to put together the first and second half of this introduction groove. So we're going to play exercise 5 and exercise 6 into one another. Then we'll have that little rest at the end just to give us a breather, and then go back over that. And I find that repeating that kind of process, whenever I'm learning something new, whenever I'm learning a new TESSERACT song, I'll isolate a section of it, I'll loop that section, and I give myself a couple of bars out of the end of it or before the beginning of it, and I just stick that on loop. And that's the best way that I find to learn these things. Now, I can tell you from experience, there's only a few times that you can play something like that through until you have to stop and take a breather. My heart is pounding after playing that because it's a hectic beat to keep down mentally and physically. There's a lot going on. So give yourself a couple of bars rest, maybe even 4 bars rest after you've played it through the first time before you're going to loop that back around. But that is one of the best ways to learn something complex, to learn something new. Is just highlight that section of the song, loop it, go round and round and round. And to do this, I'm using Cubase. I use Steinberg Cubase, and I'll highlight the section that I want to learn, and I'll just loop it and go around and around. And like I say, after a few repetitions, either a few repetitions or a few minutes, I'll have to stop and take a bit longer of a breather. And that's an important part of the process as well when learning something like this. Resting is very important. You might find that you'll get some of it down in a practice session, and don't feel discouraged if you don't get the whole thing down in a practice session. That's kind of unrealistic to expect to be able to do that. You'll very likely have to learn something in stages. So don't even set yourself a specific goal, which is, by the end of this session or by the end of this week, I'm going to have this beat down. Because if you don't have that down, you're setting yourself up to be disappointed. And with something like this that's particularly complex, if you're trying to learn it, it may be too difficult to get down in a session. So see how far you get, starting really slow. See how far you can get when you start real slow, and build it up gradually once you've got bar 1 into bar 2, into bar 3, into bar 4, and so on. See how far you can get with that process. Gradually ramp up that BPM until you're at the desired speed, or the speed of the song, which is 150. And like I say, isolate sections of it and loop those sections until it's past the point of you having to think about it. You just want to be able to play it with natural flow, just completely naturally. Now let's take a look at the verse groove. So this one is fairly complex, I'm not going to lie. There's a lot going on in this, but if you spent time with the previous exercises where I've explained the 5-stroke roll pattern, where I'm playing that to a quarter note count, you'll already have the fundamentals down for the feel that we're going to use for this groove. We're going to be looking at bars 36 through to 51, and then from bar 52, we'll do that in another chunk of a lesson in a second. For this part of the lesson though, we're going to focus on the sticking pattern and how we get that to flow and produce a nice groove. That's the groove that we're going to learn. What on earth is going on in that groove? It sounds absolutely mental. It seems like there's too much going on, but there's not. Let me show you. 5-stroke roll, our best friend. Right, left, left. We learned that earlier on, okay? Where we were playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, while keeping down that quarter note pulse on the left foot. That is what we're going to play between the right hand on the ride and the left hand on the snare. So the first thing to get down is going to be quarter notes on your pedal hat, on your foot. And to that quarter note, we're going to be playing 16th notes between the hands. And the first of that 5 group, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The first one is going to be just on the edge, like on the shoulder of the cymbal. So tip of the stick, just striking the edge of the ride, and then we've got ride, ghost, bell, ghost, ghost. Okay, ride, ghost, bell, ghost, ghost. Ride, ghost, bell, ghost, ghost. Ride, ghost, bell, ghost, ghost. That's the pattern that we're going to play. If you're playing that to a quarter note, which we are, you're going to play 5 quarter notes and that whole thing is going to come back around. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Get that pattern down first, and then what I'd like to present as an exercise is that pattern whilst also placing the right foot with the right hand. So the right side of your body is doing the exact same thing. We're just doing that, okay? So that's going to be the exercise. Let me slow that down for you. Okay, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, left, left. And the whole time we're doing that, we're keeping a quarter note count on the pedal hat, which means that for every 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, there's going to be a pedal hat strike. So that's the difficult thing to get down. And remember, like all of the other exercises, if that is super tricky, start it slow. Take it back to a point that feels like it's too slow. Take it back to a point where there's no groove. Take it back to a point where you can learn it at a slow sticking level, and you can get every element of that down. Almost, I'd say, where the 16th notes become as slow as quarter notes. You want them to be real slow to learn it. And then, when you've got it down at that speed, you can start to build it up with confidence in what you're playing, rather than fumbling around trying to get it down at full speed. So, start it slow. We're going to play that pattern, quarter notes there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're going to put the right foot with the right hand. I played that down at 120 BPM. The intended speed for hollow is 150, so there's another 30 that you'll need to do to get that up to speed. And remember, the one thing to focus on when playing that kind of thing is the ghost notes. Because what a lot of people will do when they're trying to learn something tricky is play everything at the same kind of dynamic range. Say everything will be played at kind of the same volume. And one of the important things about that pattern within this groove is that those ghost notes are really ghost notes. They're not accents. They're not supposed to be as loud as the other things that are going on. The accents that we're eventually going to put in on that 1, 2, 3, 4, which is going to be next, that needs to pop. And if you're playing those ghosts really loud and you don't have the control with your left hand, then it's just not going to work. It's going to sound too busy and crazy. So what you need to work on is this tiny movements, tiny little movements of the stick just from the wrist to get those ghost notes in there and to get them very, very quiet. So just be conscious of that when you're working on this exercise. Now we're going to play that pattern, but we're going to realize it and force it to loop after 4 bars of 4/4, rather than repeating it for 5 bars where it naturally loops. So in the song, we don't actually ever play the resolution, if that makes sense. It doesn't actually resolve it. We force it to resolve. We play a little fill and then we come back around. So what we're going to do is play 4 bars, and on the 1, 2, 3, 4, we're going to drop that snare accent. And what that's going to do is going to require us to actually play a couple of things slightly differently. There's going to be a couple of slight variations as we move through the groove, which I'll explain as we go. But let me show you. This is going to be the first bar. Okay, that's it real slow. So you've got that snare accent right in the middle there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Can be tricky to get down, but take it a step at a time. Maybe to start this out, just leave the hi-hats out. Just get the right hand, right foot, and the snare in. And then when you're comfortable with that, you can start to introduce these one at a time. So get the first one in. Get the first and the second in. And realise where those are. You can break those down. So the first one's just on the first beat, obviously. You got the kick. And then the second one is going to be on that ghost note, that second ghost note. So you can be conscious of that. You can work out where these things are. So that one's fairly easy. The third one's on that snare accent. And the fourth one is going to be on that bell. So you've got those 4 different placements for where the hi-hats are going to go, and if it is too difficult to get that in just by slowing this down, then you can drop them in one at a time and just be very conscious of where they are, and you'll start to be able to place them. So that's your first bar. And as I've explained before, I like to play from the first bar into the second bar rather than just isolating the second bar by itself. I like the reference that I get, the point of the groove, by playing from the first bar into the second bar. So that's what I'm going to do for you here. So we have first bar, second bar. So the snare accent in that second bar comes immediately after a ghost. So the technique that you have to get used to there is going from a ghost into an accent. And at a 16th note, at 150 BPM, that's going to be a little tricky. But one of the things that you can do to practice that is get yourself set up with a pad, and you can play like double strokes where you're going to accent the second stroke of that double stroke with each hand. So, or you could play that kind of thing. Just practice getting those accents in and the movement that your wrist needs to make to do that. Because you end up having to drop your hand from a ghost note, from that tip, down into that accent. So that's something to practice separate from this groove. But practicing that is going to make using it in real life within the context of a groove a lot easier. This third bar, I'll do something slightly different again. I bring my right hand over to continue a run of ghost notes. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, so I'll bring that right hand over, and then I'll do a heel toe with my right foot to get the to kind of continue that groove again. It's putting an extra beat in that isn't actually present in the rest of the groove. If you just continue in the just continue in that 1-3 pattern, there's an extra kick going in there. But I just like the way that sounds. So that's a little tiny little J-ism that I threw in there. But yeah, the pattern to get used to there is getting used to bringing that hand over from the ride to play the ghost note. And the ghost note is going to be left, right, left. So left ghost, right ghost, left accent. And to do that means I'm not playing the first of the ride hits. I'm choosing instead to play a ghost note, and then from that ghost I go back over to the ride for that bell. So you have to be conscious that you got to get back from the ride, from the ghost note over to the bell of that ride, which can be a little bit tricky. And one thing that I try and be conscious of when I'm doing that kind of thing is I'll pivot my hand. I want as little movement as possible because I want it to be as efficient as possible. So I'll bring my hand over, but there's very little movement in that. You know, it's a pivot from the wrist. That's all it is. Tiny little pivot from that wrist to get those ghost notes in, rather than, you know, bringing your whole arm back and forth. It's about a little bit about kit ergonomics, you know, getting your drum kit set up to be played efficiently so that you're not stretching miles to reach a cymbal. All of these things are very important when considering how you're going to set your kit up, because you want to be able to play this stuff as easily as possible because it's difficult. The fourth bar of this groove continues that five pattern over the 4/4 metronome, and there's a little snare drum fill at the end just before coming back around into another bar of it, or another repetition. So we've got 4 bars in total. One where the snare accent is just bang in the middle by itself, one where you've got the ghost note into the snare accent, another one where you've got the right hand coming over for 2 ghost notes into a snare accent followed by a heel toe, and then another one where we just continue in that pattern through with a little fill at the end. And I'll tend to play the bell of the cymbal just before going into that fill, just for a little bit more of an accent. First exercise then is going to be playing this groove. Now remember, take it a bar at a time, learn it slowly, build it up from a tempo that is considerably slower than 150 beats per minute, because that's very, very fast. And unless you are an absolute monster, in which case go at 150 and see how you do. But I do recommend for learning anything like this to start slow. Now it's up to you how you wish to practice this, whether you'd like to play 4 bars of it and then give yourself a rest, which is something that I encourage when learning difficult things, or with this groove in particular, it repeats. So for the purposes of this exercise, I'm just going to loop it. I'm going to loop those 4 bars and I'm going to play that over a few times, and then I'm just going to allow myself to rest. One last thing before I show you the next part of the groove. There's a little drum fill that I throw in there as well that is pretty much the same pattern that I play at each time, and it's going to follow the same pattern that we're playing in that groove. It's going to follow the right, left, left pattern, but we're going to play it across the toms, and I'm not going to be too exclusive about which toms they're going to be on, or even where the left hand's going to be. I'll bring the left hand up to the tom here for some of those hits. So let me show you what the fill is. Okay. So same thing, we got right, left, but the first left, I'm going to be like, that left is going to come up to the tom, and then I'll bring these back down for the ghost notes. And then I'll round that out with a couple of singles. 1, 2, 3, 4 at the end. And again, it can be anything. Absolutely anything. It's one of those fills that I change around quite often. I don't really think about it too much. I'm certainly not trying to play that exactly as it is on the record. It's one of those ones that I like to be a little bit more free with. But the pattern that I'm playing in the demonstration is going to be, again, right, left, left, and across a couple of different toms. This next groove is the same pattern. Again, we're playing the 5-stroke roll, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Instead of realizing it there, we're going to realize it there. So I choose to go, for the first half of it, the first 4 bars, I'll play between the stack and the china. And then for the second half of it, the last 4 bars, I'll play just on the china. So exactly the same pattern though. It's just realizing it with a heavier feel, which you can achieve just by changing the voice on the kit. So same pattern. We got the quarter notes over here on the pedal hat. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the right hand is going to be jumping between the stack and the china for the first 4, and then just the china for the last 4. The only slight difference is that in the second bar of the first version of this groove, the snare drum placement changes. And there's a couple of places I like to play it, but let me show you the one that I've put down in the transcription. So we've got the first bar, and the second one there. And there's 2 places I like to play it. That was one of them. The other place is like this. So and that pattern actually has quite a nice natural flow to it. You don't have to do anything too crazy with the right hand. It's like with the left hand, you're not playing a ghost note directly into an accent or anything. It's just continuing the same 5-stroke roll pattern, but instead of it being a ghost note, we're changing it to an accent. So right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, left, left. That's all it is. Right, left, left, right, left, left. And those 2 lefts at the beginning, those are going to be accented. Really, really simple. After you've played that crazy version of that groove, not that the entire groove itself isn't crazy, we're going to go back to the ride version of it. We're going to go back to that version of it, and then I come over to the hi-hat for a slightly different version where it's the same as the intro groove. Same patterns going on there, but we're going to be playing on the open hats. I'll play it on the ride actually in the performance video, but you can play it on the open hats on the ride, on the crash, sorry. It could be anywhere really. But let's play it on the open hats here. And it's the exact same groove from the beginning. And then there's that fill. And again, that's a 5-based fill. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm playing that right, left, right, left kind of pattern. And the only difference with this fill is that we're not ending on at the end of a grouping of 5. It's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We end on the 4 of that 5 stroke. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, it's the type of fill that I give myself some freedom to move around. You know, I don't play the exact same thing each time, but there's a snare accent I like to try and keep the same, and I do like to end it on the floor just because it feels right. Now let's talk about the Lost in Shadow bit. That's the that bit. What is going on? We have another kick drum pattern that is kind of repeating. You've got 5 kicks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm just playing singles, 16th notes. There's 3 groupings of that before it repeats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. That's the first thing that's starting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then 3 16th note rests, and then another 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. But we don't play the 3 ghost notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay? And it's going to be up on the China. I'm just playing it here so that I can talk over it because the China rings for ages. And then you've got a couple of single kick drum hits just on the right. Back to the 5. So you can hear there's 3 different versions there. One, and each one is defined by that grouping of 5 followed by a 3. There's the first one. Second. Third. So that's the basic pattern that we're going to follow with the kicks. So 5 and then a 3, and then each time there's a slightly different version of single strokes after it. But they're just designed to follow what the guitar's doing, basically. And again, we've got that snare drum accent on the 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you put all that together, okay, that's the pattern to learn first, so that you're playing it with the quarter notes, because what is going to happen next is we're going to drop those quarter notes back to just being half notes. So we're playing like a half-time feel over that, which on the China makes it sound super, super heavy. Let me show you. So instead of that, we're going to go. And then it repeats. And the only other thing really that's going on in there is there are some select cymbal accents that are going to match up with the end of some of those defined kicks, if that makes sense. So the end of the groups of those kicks or some of those stabs. So for instance, and I play these a little bit different each time as well. So those three are pretty much the same every time. I always accent those 3. And I'll tend to do a left lead for the first one. Left, left, right. So I'll bring the right hand over from that china for the third accent in that group of 3. And at the end of that second group of 5, I'll do an accent. So on that 5th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'll accent that. Then those 2 that are in the middle, they feel like they need a bit more emphasis, so I accent both of those with the left. And then the 3 at the end, all of those 3 singles, right, left, right, generally. But I like to give myself the freedom to switch hands. I'm not playing the exact same pattern each time. It's more about getting the musicality of those accents need to make sense, and also the cymbal choice. I won't play it necessarily on a giant cymbal. I want it to be kind of a fast attack for those moments. So my smaller cymbals are generally over on my left hand side. So those are the kind of things that I'll choose for that. For the exercise, then we're going to loop this pattern, and we're going to give ourselves a bar or 2 of rest at the end before looping it again. One small thing I'd like to show you as well within that groove that I play during the second repetition of that riff. So we've got the first one. And then the second. So I'll play a little snare fill that goes between 2 of the cymbal accents. And then we've got tiny fill that's just snare, tom, and then a flam on the floor tom. Play it a bit slower. And for that flam, because my right hand is already over on the tom here, I'll tend to bring the right hand down for the ghost, for the small note at the beginning of the flam, and accent with my left rather than doing left-right. Something about that just feels more comfortable because my body's already over on that side. Let's talk about this outro groove then. What's going on? We've got a very slow groove here. Even though the metronome is still counting up pretty fast, we're keeping a halftime feel on a big crash. That's the important thing here. That's the basic groove to get down first. So let me slow it down. Okay, slow it down a bit more. I'll play it on the stack. That's the pattern that you want to get down first, and you want to work on that, build it up on a cymbal, and remember, you're locking into every 1 and 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and all of the accents that we're going to play with our left hand or right hand, any of the cymbal accents that we're going to play are just going to lock in with that kick drum pattern that we've been practicing. If you've practiced that groove, they're just going to lock in with that. So there's nothing too crazy extra that you're having to learn. It's just a case of bringing your hand up from the snare, from those ghost notes, to play one of those accents, or you're bringing your right hand over from that other crash, if you've got another crash near that you can swoop over to. That's what I'd recommend practicing first. So get that groove down, build it up onto the cymbals, and get those cymbal accents matching up with what the kick drum's doing, and make sure it's nice and dynamic as well. We're not absolutely caning the cymbals over this bit. It's kind of a big washy groove. The other thing is that we've got a couple of fills in there. The first one switches to like an 8th note triplet feel. So we're going to play around the toms and then come back round to the snare. And that, again, I'll let myself be free with that. I tend to find that ending it with a kick, tom, snare works nice. Or tom, ghost, snare, tom, ghost accent. Anything that's like that is acceptable for me to play over that section. And to get that kind of feel down, I'll put a metronome on that's counting that, like 1, 2, 3, 4. Get used to playing that triplet feel over the quarter note feel. The exercise then is going to be 8 bars in total. We're going to play the washy groove, and then we're going to play that 8th note triplet fill, and then we're going to come back around. And remember, if getting to that stage by itself, just playing it slowly isn't enough, slow it down and just get... That's where you want to be sitting first before trying to build up into the rest of it. During the second half of this groove, we have another fill. That one. And for that one, I'll combine a few things. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So borrowing that 5-stroke roll from the groove. From that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. And then I'll do a double on the next tom, because that double, I need to have a snare accent immediately after it. And after that snare accent, 2 floor toms, and the first one's a little quieter. Okay. It's pretty fast when you're playing it at 150. So practice getting that into that groove. And then all that's left is the very end. So we go into that groove again. And we play a couple of cymbal accents. One, two, three, four, five, six. Off of that China. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then the 7 kicks. And I accent the first of those kicks, and then the very final one. And that's it. That is Hollow. That is how to play it. It's not that easy. There's a lot going on in that song, but if you can get your head around the 5/4 polyrhythm, if you can get your head around that 5-stroke roll pattern, right, left, left, if you can learn to play that dynamically as fills and dynamically as grooves while you're keeping down a quarter note beat, that's going a quarter note metronome, that's going to sound excellent. And then there's a couple of repeating kick drum patterns that you got to learn. There's a couple of slight variations of that 5-stroke groove as well. But the most important thing, as well as getting that 5 down, is going to be your dynamics. That's the main thing that makes this song work. Even though it's a heavy song, the drums are still dynamic. And that's one of the most important things when working on any song, in my opinion. But something like this, where you want it to be heavy, but you want the heavier parts to really hit, you have to do things like change to that halftime feel, change to a China, use the China sparingly until you want the song to absolutely explode at a certain moment. So there's all these decisions to make, these kind of choices that you have to make as a drummer when you're playing and when you're composing. And within this short song, it's only like 2 minutes and 50 seconds, it's a really short song, but within it, there's a lot of ideas to wrap your head around. And I hope that if you've worked through these lessons, if you've worked through the exercises that are presented, then you've realized some of these ideas. You've realized some of the types of patterns that you can apply to your own playing, and I hope they continue to get more comfortable for you so that you can use them within your own playing. You can get them to a point where it's just automatic and comfortable, because that's basically the goal with anything that I'm trying to teach, as well as just showing you, giving you a bit of an insight into the song itself, what's going on. I want you to have these ideas for yourself so that you can use them as patterns within your own playing. That is the ultimate goal for all of this. If you enjoyed working through this lesson and you feel as though my teaching style is a good fit for you, then check this out. This is my progressive drumming masterclass. It's 36 of the drum lessons that I've created for my mentorship students, and they're designed to target some of the patterns, the concepts and the techniques that I use when composing and learning and performing complex ideas on the drums. And I cherry-picked these lessons because they were the ones that provided the biggest noticeable improvements in my students' abilities. I'm certain that if you enjoyed this lesson, you will get a load more growth out of the masterclass. So I'd like to invite you to schedule a free Zoom call with me where we can talk about your ambition as a drummer, discuss where you are right now, and how I can help you get to where you want to be.